Hello, everyone. I'm Al Grego, and this is the Yes, We Were Open podcast. It's my last day in Winnipeg, and this morning I had to visit one last tourist destination before calling it a trip. So I headed east and crossed the Red River via the Provincial Bridge to St. Boniface, a city ward and French-speaking neighborhood in Winnipeg. Established in 1818 as the mother parish for many French settlements in Western Canada, St. Boniface was the birthplace of Louis Riel, a founder of the province of Manitoba and a political leader of the Métis people. Riel led two resistant movements against John A. Macdonald's Canadian government, seeking to defend Métis rights and identity. He was later imprisoned, convicted of high treason, and executed by hanging in 1885. Considered a heroic victim by French Canadians, Riel's execution polarized the country along French and English lines. As of 2016, St. Boniface had a population of approximately 58,000 and is considered the largest Francophone community in Western Canada. One of St. Boniface's biggest attractions is the St. Boniface Cathedral, built in 1906. It was the largest, most elaborate Roman Catholic cathedral in Western Canada. In 1968, it was almost completely destroyed by fire. Only the facade and parts of the walls of the old church remain to this day. A newer, smaller cathedral was built behind the facade in 1972. I spent some time walking the grounds, admiring the ruins of the old cathedral, and roaming the cemetery on the church grounds, which housed the remains of many notable people, but the most notable would be Louis Riel himself. After my walking tour, I had lunch at a nearby cafe, but I made sure not to have anything sweet. That would come later. I then crossed back over the Red River and headed back to the west end of the city, along Notre Dame Avenue, not too far from where I was last week near the airport. I turned down James Street to an industrial plaza on my right and the location of this week's story, Jenna Rae Cakes. Hi, Ashley?
Yes.
I'm Alan.
Nice to meet you.
That's Ashley. She leads me into a boardroom and introduces me to her twin sister, Jenna. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. There are a few people working at the boardroom table, so the sisters lead me into their staff room, where we settle in for our interview.
Hello, I'm Ashley Kosowan, and I'm co-owner and creative director of Jenna Rae Cakes. And I'm Jenna Hutchinson, and I'm co-owner as well and head decorator at Jenna Rae Cakes.
When did Jenna Rae Cakes begin?
So Jenna Rae Cakes started as a dream. Way back in our old apartment on Roslyn Road here in Winnipeg, about 15 years ago, almost in November, I was watching an episode of Cake Boss and I thought to myself, hey, that looks like fun. I want to try that. So I went out and bought everything I needed to make my first fondant cake. And I made my first cake and it wasn't that great, but I was immediately hooked and fell in love right then and there. And it slowly but surely started to take over my life and our apartment. Ash and I lived together at the time along with her now husband and now COO Trevor.
What's your name?
Trevor.
And what do you do here?
I'm the chief of operations at Jenna Rae Cakes.
And how long have you been doing that?
Formally for 10 years, I actually got to see this business grow. Jenna, Ashley, myself, we all lived in an apartment in Osborne Village together. While living there, I saw Jenna start this from scratch and then Ashley helped create the brand. And so I've seen it for quite some time.
I quickly found out that it was illegal to make cakes out of your apartment here in Manitoba and sell them. So I got a call from the city and had to legitimize my business, which was a good thing in the end, obviously, because it forced me to take the next step and get it licensed and all that stuff, and then to rent kitchens overnight. So I was doing that for about 4 years while going to school, going to university. I wanted to be a dentist, and I was working a serving job at night, and then I was going to these kitchens around 11, 12 p.m., and then working all night, and then doing it over again and over again and over again for years, to the point where it got a little bit too intense. So I decided I'm just going to open a bakery and see what happens, and That was the beginning of the actual Jenna Rae Cakes.
You had no previous experience with baking?
No, it was just baking with our mom and our granny and our baba just at home. I think I made a cake for like a friend out of a box once with some icing from a tub, but it was nothing special at all. So yeah, I'm very self-taught. Very much so, yeah.
So you guys were living together, or were you in school at the time?
I was in university. I had written my DAT and everything. I wasn't accepted yet, but I was getting all my pre-courses. Yeah, and I had already graduated college at that point, so I was working as a graphic designer.
What qualified you to work here?
Absolutely nothing.
Just perfect.
By trade, I'm a graphic designer and I'm a vocational teacher. I went through a career change, and while I left my advertising job, I went back to school to get my vocational teaching. And while I was doing that, the business started moving forward, and Jenna purchased that spot and was open for business. And while I was in a transition period, I was either going to help them with some front of house and customer service, or go substitute teach, or go back to the ad world. And I decided to give them a hand. And 10 years later, here I am.
Let's talk about when you first started in 2010. Before you had a storefront, how were you selling?
So when I started making cakes, I started putting them on Facebook just to show people what I was doing. I had no intentions of selling them. At that point, I was just like, I'll make anybody a cake who wants one. I'm like, oh, it's your birthday coming up here. I don't even know this person at work, and I'll make them a cake and whatever. So I started posting those online, and then I started getting orders from friends, and then I started getting orders from friends of friends, and then from complete strangers. And that's when I was like, okay, I might be onto something here. And then Ash was working at a wedding magazine at the time, so she got me into there. And I was able to do a couple photo shoots and get my name out in the wedding world a little bit too. So that really helped. And then, yeah, it was kind of just word of mouth at the time. And then Instagram had started around that time as well. And that really helped us get our name out there as well.
You're Jenna, so the name is obvious.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive on calling it Jenna Rae Cakes, and what year did you establish?
What was the official year?
2010 is when you started.
Yeah.
You had your website and your logo and all of that stuff, and you were registered, but the storefront was 2014.
The name, I initially wanted to do something lame like Sugar and Spice or something. And then Ash was like, no, let's use your name instead. She was always there to bounce off ideas, even though she wasn't technically part of it yet.
Right.
She helped me set up the actual store. She laid down the floor. She was there opening day to help. And it was always the plan to have her join later on down the road when I can afford to hire someone. And she joined pretty quickly when we opened because it was just so busy. And then I asked her if she wanted to change the name since it was just my name. And she's like, no, we're pretty well established already. But now everybody knows we're a package deal. So yeah,
I don't mind.
So I was making no money for sure because I was using all the money I would make to buy ingredients for the next week of cakes and things like that. So definitely wasn't charging enough, but I just saw it as kind of an investment into learning and getting photos just so people could see what I'm doing.
Education.
Yeah, it was pretty much my education. Yeah. It wasn't so much as I thought I could make lots of money doing it to open a store. It was more of out of necessity because I was so exhausted from doing what I was doing for years and it just wasn't really feasible anymore. So it was either I gave up on it and fully committed to school, or I just took a chance and went with it full force and see what happened. Just enough to support me, basically.
Right.
To do what I love. And it definitely took off in a way that I wasn't expecting, but it worked out really great. It wasn't a business decision by any means. It's just, I just wanted to do what I loved and make a living at it.
At some point, though, you did start making a living at it. Was that around the time you opened your first storefront in 2014? Or?
Yeah, luckily for us, it kind of grew very fast. And it was the first time I started like actually making money that I wasn't spending all on ingredients for the next week. So that was really fun and really exciting. They were very busy days. Ash and I worked all day, every day. It was a very small staff of just us at the beginning. Then we got our sister on board and then hired our first non-family employee. I think in the February, we opened in March. So almost a year of just doing it ourselves. And we worked a lot. So overhead was low because it was just us working. Yeah. But yeah, it was nice to see some actual money in my bank account for once.
Yeah, it was great timing when we opened the store because Instagram was really taking off at that point and we were such a visual business. We posted like 12 times a day. That was before stories even existed.
Yeah.
So we were able to kind of build hype, and it was kind of the first bakery of its kind in Winnipeg.
Anywhere, really.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, so we did our own thing, and it was totally unique, and the flavors we were doing were unique and hadn't been seen before, so we got a lot of followers both locally and internationally. So that was a really cool kind of moment in time for us to launch something new.
Your store in 2014 that you opened on Academy Road, how was it received when you guys first opened your doors?
I remember the first customers that came still. They ordered cupcakes and they sat at the table and it was very exciting. But yeah, we sold out of everything that day. I remember having to go to 7-Eleven to get peanut butter cups to make some more cheesecake. But yeah, it was way better than I had thought. I remember sales were over $1,000 and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then it kind of just continued like that from day one. And
the first time we had a lineup before open, I think it was September.
You were gone.
Yeah, right. I was gone. Yeah, so September, that was kind of the first time we were like, something
we were like, what's happening out there?
What? Yeah.
And then our lineups got longer and longer, and people every Saturday morning for sure, people were lined up out there for like there was a good like hour to 2 hour rush.
Yeah.
And it was
For
amazing.
years.
For years. Yeah, it was great. We were so in awe of it.
Yeah, Winnipeg was really ready for just a different type of store, restaurant, or boutique bakery. We were kind of one of the first.
Well, our number one item is our macarons. They're super popular, super delicious. We love them, and people just...
They've been our best seller since day one, and I think they really helped us grow because we were able to do them in such a wide variety of fun flavors that hadn't really been seen before. When we launched, everyone who made macarons was doing pistachio, raspberry, vanilla, lemon, and that was that.
Maybe
and we
salted
did
caramel in
Lucky Charms and sour candy peach and
Cotton
blue
candy.
raspberry and
Nice.
cotton candy. So it doesn't sound new now, but back then it really was. And so I think that really helped us kind of stand out. And then our second bestseller would be our cookie sandwiches and then cupcakes.
Yeah, and cakes and custom cakes has always been a big part of it as well.
Jenna is a world-class cake designer. It's still so incredible to watch her work. She's so talented at what she does. And I think she's really put us on the map internationally. We have 4 stores now.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So our first one, our flagship, is on Academy Road. And then we opened our second location at the Forks, which is a market here in Winnipeg. And the third location is Island Lakes, which is south side of the city. And our fourth, we just opened a few weeks ago at the Winnipeg airport.
So do you bake on location or do you have a central kitchen somewhere?
Everything's baked back there.
Back here?
Yeah.
Roughly how many employees do you have?
It fluctuates between 40 and 50, I would say.
What's your name?
My name's Tori.
And what do you do here?
I'm a baker.
How long have you been working here?
7 years.
So what's your favorite part about working here?
I mean, the girls are great. I love the atmosphere. I love the space. I love the girls. It's a really fun, colorful place to be.
But it started off as a family affair.
Yes.
So
Very much so.
Your sisters, your father's involved, your husband is involved, right? Any other siblings or family?
Our younger sister, Chelsea, was the third edition. So it was me, her, and Ash in the kitchens at all hours of the day for a year. She took a year off school. She's a speech and language pathologist now, but she worked closely with us for a long time, helping us build the business. So those are really fun memories we have all working together.
So how is it working with family? I mean, you guys must be tight knit. From my experience, sometimes it doesn't work.
We got told that a lot when we started.
Like every single meeting we had with lawyers or bankers or anyone interior, like, are you sure you want to work with family? It usually doesn't work. And we're like, no, we're pretty sure we got this.
Yeah.
There are definitely challenges that come from it here and there, but I think it's overwhelmingly positive for us because we can fully rely on each other and we completely trust each other. And it's just really nice to know that you always have people to talk to who fully understand you, know your vision, know who you are as a person, and you can relate to what's going on day to day, year to year. It would be really lonely being an entrepreneur with all of the challenges you have to go through daily to not have someone who loves you kind of in your corner.
Yeah,
So,
I could never do it alone, that's for sure.
yeah.
For many reasons, but that being
And you're twins. So do you ever have that, ESP between the two of you? Like,
we do know what each other thinks about pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Now tell the truth, they're not in the room, they're not listening. Do they actually get along that well?
Yes. Yes, they actually do. I don't think we'd be as successful as we were if they didn't. Being identical twins gives them an advantage because they've grown up together, so they know all their pressure points. But they have the same taste. They have the same philosophies about a lot of different things. And again, their skill sets are so complementary to one another that it's always pretty smooth. And I'm not just saying that.
what about growing up here maybe has helped you start your own business, like giving you that entrepreneurial spirit? Were your parents entrepreneurs as well? Or like, where did you get that thought from?
Our parents are really hard workers. They've never been entrepreneurs, but we grew up watching them work really hard their whole lives, and they instilled a great work ethic in us. Being an entrepreneur was not a buzzword at all.
Honestly,
when
we didn't even know what that meant.
No, I was trying to fill out a form a couple months into the business. I'm like, well, I'm not a baker.
Right.
Like, I feel like a fraud saying that. I'm like, I guess I'm an entrepreneur.
I only literally started using that title like a year ago.
Yeah, because we just worked and we were just building something. We didn't really realize what we were building or what we were even doing. Or
I just wanted to make cakes. That's pretty much it. So
yeah,
this enabled me to do that.
And I think it honestly helped that we didn't know what we were getting into, because then that would have been really intimidating.
Totally. Yeah. I always say too, I'm glad that I'm self-taught in that way, because I didn't go to pastry school. So I wasn't taught that the only macaron flavors are pistachio.
No, we had
raspberry,
chefs like laugh
whatever.
and make fun
Yeah,
of us.
we had chefs like look down on us because we were doing those fun flavors. But
it's like, no one's going to buy those. And we're like,
joke's on them, I guess.
Sold millions. So.
Joke's on them indeed. Jenna and Ashley have built a name for themselves in baking circles, not only in Winnipeg, but internationally. It seemed like smooth sailing to start, but how will the young entrepreneurs handle their first taste of struggle? Stay tuned to find out. You're listening to Yes, We Are Open. Twin sisters Jenna and Ashley Ilchuk have built a cake empire in Winnipeg, Manitoba, with very little business experience, but a lot of hard work. Known for their unique and delicious variety of macarons, cookie sandwiches, and of course, cakes, their products are as beautiful as they are tasty. But the last few years were a challenge, to say the least. Were they up to the task? Listen to find out.
What has been maybe your biggest struggle?
I mean, for a lot of businesses, I think all of our answers are the same.
Yeah.
COVID really changed the landscape for small business. There was a big boom during 2020, and that was
Support local
was huge. And that was so important for so many small businesses at that time, because we were struggling to completely adapt to a new way of life, essentially. That was really great. But then as the pandemic wore on, it has been a really hard mix of inflation in all of our ingredients, which are one of our biggest expenses, and huge increases in our labor as well, which is also one of our biggest expenses. And there's only so much you can charge for a cookie sandwich. We're not a big grocery store who can charge $25 for cherries and people will buy them because that's their only option.
Right.
So that margin that we used to have is just kind of gone. So we've had to be really creative and resourceful with the way that we structure our business going forward.
What would have been the lowest point?
The lowest point that I've had in the business was right at the beginning of the pandemic, when we had to lay off most of our staff.
Okay.
We kept everyone salaried, employed until we figured out what we were doing, but we had to lay off a lot of people. And that was like a really tough blow to us, because we had like a week preparation, and it was a wild time, as we all remember.
I was back in the kitchen baking all the cakes and stuff, and we made it work. So it also kind of made me realize, like, you know, if bleep hits the fan, I don't know if it's fair, then we know that we can scale it back down, and it can just be us again, and we can figure it out. So that was kind of reassuring in a way, and not that we want to go back to that lifestyle, because that wasn't very, especially with kids, it would be a lot different. But I don't know, I was like, we're going to be okay no matter what. We're hard workers. We'll figure it out. But something we're really proud of is that we were able to offer the jobs back to every single person that we laid off within the next 6 months. So
Everyone came back.
everyone came back. We've grown out to 4 locations, and I think we're happy there. And we just really want to kind of solidify where we are now and kind of adapt to this changed landscape the best we can. And I really feel for businesses who haven't been in business as long as we have.
I don't know how they do it, honestly.
I know it would be very intimidating now to start a business. And that scares me, because I think the small business landscape in any city really provides
The culture.
and like, it's a beautiful part of a community. And now the struggle is just kind of figuring out ways to be blunt, to be profitable.
Right.
Yeah.
Because with the rising cost of labor and ingredients and all that, we just are trying to find creative ways to...
Yeah, profit margins were tight to begin with, and now they're
Any
non-existent.
restaurant can understand that.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses found, efficiencies during that time because they had to. They're forced
Yes.
to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Were you doing the same here then?
Yeah.
Yeah, one major thing we realized is that we don't need as expansive of a menu as we thought. We really did scale back our offering during COVID, and we have increased it again slightly since, but we learned a lot through that experience of just being more efficient with our time and our ingredient ordering and our production schedule and all of that. And that has definitely helped us going forward.
So when things started opening up, how did that go? Like ramping your business back up? Did you have to do like more of a promotional push, or were people just ready to come back?
It was kind of like a slow build. I feel like it was. It didn't all of a sudden feel like because we were open the whole time.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those stores that had to close and reopen and close and reopen. Thank God.
I don't think it's ever gone back to what it was.
No.
Like in 2019, and that kind of in-person shopping has changed. So there's no more huge lineups on the weekends or really like busy in and out, but we have adapted in that we do local delivery and we take online orders for all of our most custom cakes and everything online. So that's become a big part of our business now too. And we also are on meal delivery apps. So it did kind of force us to
we never
diversify
entertained
in that way.
that stuff before.
We just, frankly, we didn't need to. People would come to the store and that was great for us. But since COVID, we definitely had to make those changes. So it's
because
just,
you do have to give quite a big cutaway when you do those delivery
yes.
apps, but you can't not be on them these days. So
Right.
I mean, maybe I'm being pessimistic and maybe we're just in a recession and there's going to be a heyday again when people have more spending money and feel more positive about the future. But we're kind of prepping for this to be our new normal. And not to say it's dire or it's really bad or anything. We're making it work and we're hopeful about the future, but it's just a different reality than it was in 2019. Moneris has just been a great resource for us. We work with a ton of different vendors across all parts of our business. And the customer service with Moneris, we've really noticed a difference. We can actually get a hold of a human. We have a rep who knows us by name. We actually know her too well.
we grew up with her actually.
So coincidence.
You want to mention her name?
Hi, Megan. We love you.
Yeah, Megan's great.
Megan's great.
Yeah, Megan's great. So that has been really nice because normally when you work with businesses, you get someone random on a customer help line after
You're
waiting
promised
a bunch.
these things, but when you actually need help, you can't get a hold of anyone. So
Yeah, it's been a great experience that way.
Coming up after the break, we find out what the future holds for Jenna Rae Cakes. Welcome back to Yes, We Are Open. Jenna and Ashley have pulled their business through one of the most challenging times they could imagine, and succeeded through hard work and determination. Now that they've made their adjustments and even opened a fourth location, what could be next for Jenna Rae Cakes? Let's find out. What does the future look like for Jenna Rae Cakes?
I mean, it's so hard to predict these things because
and I feel like it changes a lot.
Yeah, when we first started, when Jenna first started Jenna Rae Cakes, we had no clue what it was going to grow into because
Not a clue.
We like to go with the flow. We're very decisive as well. And we like to seize opportunity when it comes. So it's really hard to predict. But I think if you are asking us today, it's kind of solidifying the 4 locations we have, really making sure we're being as efficient as possible with our procedures that we do daily, and just shoring up the business to make sure that we can kind of weather any storm that comes our way
and be able to retire one day.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
It sounded like your fourth location, you're kind of comfortable with 4, and that's probably where you're going to stop. But I mean, any chance you could franchise and maybe even outside of Manitoba, or are you just happy to be a Manitoba success story and that's where you stay?
I could see us being everywhere. We both travel a lot, and I've been to a lot of different big cities, and no one quite does what we do, and I think it would do great everywhere. I don't know if I'm just being biased, but I really do.
The brand is great.
The brand is amazing.
Yeah.
Ash does such a good job with the brand, and we have great products.
Yeah.
And I know it can be successful, but it's just doing that.
I think finding the right partner would be the crucial piece of it, because I feel like the 3 of us, myself, Jen, and Trev, we've built it as big as we can comfortably build it. It's a huge financial push to be able to build a new store and keep this kitchen going. So never say never. If we find the right
We're definitely
opportunity
open
partner,
to it if something were to come along that made sense.
We have a belief in the business and the brand, but I think we've built it as big as we can currently.
Yeah, with our non-business skills.
What about wholesale? Is there anything? It sounds like your macarons could be products that can be sold in grocery stores. You know, have you looked into that or considered that?
Yeah, that is actually the next step for us. We're going to try and get our macarons distributed by national distributors. So like Cisco and Bakemark, we would love to kind of be their supplier. So that is kind of our next step.
Yeah, because we have the ability to make a lot more macarons now that we've kind of fleshed that out. We need to figure out a couple things, obviously, but it's definitely a possibility. And our macarons are so honed in now, and
they're very tricky to master, but we've finally done it after 10 years.
We definitely mastered them.
Looking at, what they've built in the last 15 years, how do you feel about that?
As far as role models go, I mean, it doesn't get too much better than Jenna and Ashley. What they've been able to build, it's incredible. Their skill sets have been so complementary. And myself, what I've kind of brought to it has been the customer service aspect to it. I worked front of house there for about 4 to 5 years. So I got to see it from very humble beginnings, well, even further than that, being in our apartment.
I feel really proud of what we've done. I think doing interviews like this, you kind of go through your story and your journey. And it really is incredible that, we're still here and we're still growing and we're still in it day to day. And it's never been easy, but it's always been worth it. And it's given us so many cool opportunities. Like this year alone, we went to Australia earlier this year to teach. And in a week and a bit, we're going to England to teach. Well, Jenna's teaching, I'm the assistant. And it's provided so many cool opportunities to see the world and to get to know so many amazing people in our community, support the industry through vendors and hiring locally, and just being a part of people's celebrations has been really special. So overall, I'm really proud.
It feels like such a success story and seems like something out of a movie. And to be a part of it is very humbling. And to see how Winnipeg has gotten behind us and allowed us to grow has been very humbling as well. So yeah, it feels great. It's a pretty feel-good story as far as I'm concerned.
It's been really cool to see. Like if you would have told me that we'd be here at this moment 10, 14 years ago, I would not believe you at all. I'm proud of being able to employ all of our wonderful employees and give back to our community through our cake club and just do things that we'd never be able to do otherwise. So I wouldn't change a thing. And working with Ash every day is really fun.
And I believe you.
We hang out all the time, even outside of work.
I think we're also both really proud of the team around us. We're just surrounded by really smart, hardworking people every day, and that makes a huge difference as well.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Ashley and Jenna, is Jenna Rae Cakes open?
Yes, we're open.
In perfect unison.
As always.
That's the story of Jenna Rae Cakes. The whole point of this podcast is to learn from struggle. And you might wonder, what exactly did we learn from Jenna and Ashley's struggle this week? It's not so much what we learned, it's what they learned when they had to lay their entire staff off and return to the kitchen themselves. Short of going out of business, that was a worst-case scenario, but they persevered. They got back to doing what got them there in the first place. Hard work. Just the two of them. And it worked. They survived. And then they were able to bring back their staff. After that, nothing should seem impossible. In her own words, Jenna said they're going to be okay no matter what, because they were hard workers. Think about how liberating that must feel, especially if you're new to business and afraid to take that step because you might fail. I think Ashley put it best when she said, "It's never easy, but it's always worth it." That phrase encapsulates the entrepreneurial spirit. Well, Jenna and Ashley have that spirit in spades. By the way, I brought home an assortment of Jenna Rae Cakes macarons and received a hero's welcome from my wife and kids. They were gone in minutes. Good thing I had my fill before I left Winnipeg. I highly recommend them. Yes, We Were Open is a Moneris podcast production. I'd like to thank Tori, Trevor, Ashley, and Jenna for taking the time to share their story. You can learn more about Jenna Rae Cakes at jennaraecakes.com. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Jenna Rae Cakes, and on YouTube, they're at Jenna Rae Cakes 6549. For more information about this podcast, visit our site, yeswereopenpodcast.com. If you'd like to support us, rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a Canadian small business owner or know of one with an interesting story of perseverance to tell, I'd love to help tell it. You can contact me at podcast@moneris.com. Tune in next week for another story of small business struggle and survival on the Yes We Are Open podcast. I'm Al Grego. Thank you for listening.